If Dusty is the consummate professional who started in the 50s, our next queen is a natural who walked barefoot off the factory floor and straight onto top of the pops. Sandie Shaw.
Sandie Shaw, like Nancy Sinatra in America, she absolutely epitomises swinging 60s England. She's the quintessential swinging 60s girl.
I loved Sandie's look. She was original and special and not blonde, which I think was important at that particular time.
I suppose it sounds arrogant and egotistic, but I always knew that I would do it. And I think it's because I was young. And when you're young, you don't know all the things that might stop you or limit you. You just have dreams.
Long, long live love.
Sandra Ann Goodrich worked at Ford Dagenham, but dreamed of being a singer.
I remember once it was in a dance hall and there was this group on and there was the most terrible singer singing. And I turned around to my friend and said, look, even me and you could do better than that. So she, well, you could anyway. So she went up to the group and she said something in their ear and next thing I knew, I was up on the stage singing with them.
It was only blokes around then. There weren't any girls doing it. And so when I was on, all the boys in the bands, they were all huddled along the side of the stage because they just couldn't get enough.
And it was a working-class heartthrob that helped her realise her dream.
Wish you wanted my love, baby.
Afterwards, I'd met Adam Faith backstage. He'd said, I want you to make some records, here's my manager, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just about to sign a record contract. And I mentioned to my friends, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm going to be coming in the future because I'm going to be a star. They just laughed because they thought, she'd lost it completely. But within months, I'd got #1 record.
I walk along the city streets you used to walk along with me.
I thought it was amazing to have my song played on the radio all the time, to actually wake up and there it was playing. And the first time I heard it was in the kitchen with my mum, and we were both just dancing around in the kitchen to it.
There's always something there to remind me.
It's a completely surreal and unheard of situation from some little girl in Dagenham.
I was born to love you, and I will never be free. You'll always be a part of me.
Adam Faith's manager, Eve Taylor, had a background in variety and saw Sandie as a light entertainment star.
My dearest one.
But songwriter Chris Andrews saw the girl of the moment.
I just liked him immediately because he was like the kind of older brother I think I'd always wanted. So we just immediately hit it off.
You have a date for your best date tonight. Some distant bells start chiming now.
I couldn't write music and I couldn't play anything, but I was able to choose the musicians and I was able to say in my own kind of limited, naive way, I want the horns to sound like this, and I want to see if you put a guitar with a horn, what that sound would make. It was a young woman actually finding her feet and expressing herself in this musical sense.
You wait and wait, girl, don't come.
Sandie was a natural from head to her very toes.
I remember being called up to the box, summoned up to the box. They're all sat round talking about my feet, and I was, sorry, I'm singing down there, what's all this about? And they were saying to me, well, we'd like you to continue singing like that because you sing better when you put your shoes on.
How can you tell if somebody loves you? How do you know they mean it? How can you tell if
But Sandie didn't really need permission to be herself.
It became a sort of a trademark, I suppose. It wasn't done to be all cool or anything. That was absolute natural.
Let's take a swing at our mates across the channel, where even the kids talk funny.
l'amour c'est la plus grande affaire pour tous ceux qui sont sur terre.
Sandie's chic translated across the continent, and her manager saw this as an opportunity to force her in a new direction.
Once upon a time, an English song for the first time won the Eurovision Song Contest. I was lucky enough to be the one who sang it.
It had such an awful reputation then, and I thought I was just so cool, and it was the worst possible match.
You think I'm very hard, don't you? But I'm not.
She's bringing me down.
No, I'm not bringing you down because you know it's the truth.
She convinced me that if I didn't do this, I could never work again.
Had a dream last night.
There were 5 songs in contention, but Sandie was hoping that Chris Andrews' song would win.
Now it's up to you.
The public in the end chose the song that they wanted, which to my horror was Puppet on a String, my least favourite of all songs.
I wonder if one day that you say that you care if you...
I know that our manager wanted us to win, and our manager was very clever. But Sandie was a professional. She had to get on with what she was given. The public had voted for Puppet on a String. She was going to give a magnificent performance.
I wonder if one day that you say that you care if you say you love me madly, I'd gladly be there like a puppet on a string.
I was just embarrassed by it. I didn't kind of realise then it wasn't really for the audience that I'd been aiming at before. It was for a family audience.
String. Thank you.
But as the natural became professional, she found herself in the middle of the road.
She always says it ruined her career, but it went to #1 all over Europe, practically all over the world except America.
I was very concerned because I thought, now what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this and turn it around?
Sandie tried to turn it round by becoming the driving force behind her own TV show. She also produced an album covering artists such as the Stones and Dylan, songs which she thought defined her generation. Her old-school manager was less than impressed.
Of course, Evie hated it. She hated the thought of it, she hated the sound of it, she hated the look of it, she hated its very existence. So it kind of like disappeared without a trace. Shortly after that, what happened is that I began to lose heart.
Always something there to remind me.
Sandie and her public started to disagree on what Sandie Shaw should be. She'd tried to move on, but they hadn't.
I walk along the city streets you used to walk along with me.
In the early 70s, Sandie deliberately withdrew from the music industry to concentrate on her family.
Oh, how can I?
But just as the Pet Shop Boys had reclaimed their icon, Dusty Springfield, someone in the 80s wanted to reclaim one of his.
Here's Sandie Shaw with the Smiths.
The Smiths and Sandie Shaw. We all thought, of course, it seemed so perfect. And I think she pulled off that trick of kind of not trying to look like she did then. She seemed comfortable in her skin. She seemed comfortable being the age she was. And he thought, how marvellous to see a woman behaving with such abandon, on top of the pops. She wasn't behaving as, a woman of her age, and a mother and all this kind of thing, was supposed to behave.
She was the first singer ever to cover Led Zeppelin. And she's a qualified psychotherapist,
I am actually very proud of what I did when I was younger. I'm proud of what I did in the 60s and I'm proud of what I did in the 80s. There are obviously lots of things I wished I'd done better. Just give me the chance and I will.